Hey folks, Dr. Carter here one more time. I have uploaded two videos dealing with part-time Indian, and we've only got about 20 pages left if you've been following along in the video. So I think what I'm going to do is just read these aloud. You can follow along. I'm going to start on page 215-ish, okay, where it says my freshman year report card. And I'll just stop to make commentary here and there. Just drop my notes from when I used to teach this at college. In fact, I actually taught this at Washington State, where Sherman Alexi was a student. So this chapter begins remembering. Today, my mother, father, and I went to the cemetery and cleaned graves. We took care of grandmother Spirit, Eugene, and Mary. Mom had packed a picnic and Dad had brought his saxophone, so we made a whole day of it. We Indians know how to celebrate with our dead. And I felt okay. My mother and father held hands and kissed each other. You can't make out in the graveyard, I said. Love and death, my father said. It's all love and death. You're crazy, I said. I'm crazy about you, he said, and he hugged me. And he hugged my mother. And she had tears in her eyes. And she held my face in her hands. Junior, she said, I'm so proud of you. That was the best thing she could have said. In the middle of a crazy and drunk life, you have to hang on to the good and sober moments tightly. I was happy, but I still missed my sister, and no amount of love and trust was going to make that better. I love her. I will always love her. I mean, she was amazing. It was courageous of her to leave the basement and move to Montana. She went searching for her dreams, and she didn't find them, but she made the attempt. And that's enough to get his respect. And I was making the attempt too, and maybe it would kill me too, but I knew that staying on the res would have killed me too. It all made me cry for my sister. It made me cry for myself, but I was crying for my tribe too. I was crying because I knew 5 or 10 or 15 more Spokaneans would die during the next year, and that most of them would die because of booze. I cried because so many of my fellow tribal members were slowly killing themselves, and I wanted them to live. I wanted them to get strong and get sober and get the hell off the res. It's a weird thing. Reservations were meant to be prisons, you know. Indians were supposed to move onto reservations and die. We were supposed to disappear. But somehow or another, Indians have forgotten that reservations were meant to be death camps. Remember what Mr. P said about killing the Indian to save the child? I wept because I was the only one who was brave and crazy enough to leave the res. I was the only one with enough arrogance. I wept and wept and wept because I knew that I was never going to drink, and because I was never going to kill myself, and because I was going to have a better life out in the white world. I realized that I might be a lonely Indian boy, but I was not alone in my loneliness. There were millions of other Americans who had left their birthplaces in search of a dream. I realized that sure, I was a Spokane Indian. I belonged to that tribe, but I also belonged to the tribe of American immigrants, and to the tribe of basketball players, and to the tribe of bookworms, and to the tribe of cartoonists, of chronic masturbators, of teenage boys, of small town kids, of Pacific Northwesterners, of tortilla chips and salsa lovers, of poverty, of funeral goers, of beloved sons, of boys who really miss their best friends. It was a huge revelation. So when he realizes that he's not alone, but he is connected to all of these various populations. So ask yourself for a moment, what are your tribes? It was a huge realization. And that's when I knew that I was going to be okay. So again, a really, truly a big turning point in the book. But it also reminded me of the people who were not going to be okay. It made me think of Rowdy. I missed him so much. I wanted to find him and hug him and beg him to forgive me for leaving. And then here is this picture. It says, boys can hold hands until they're 9. Not afraid about being close. Just a pure, sort of innocent, true sort of love. Next chapter is called Talking About Turtles. The reservation is beautiful. I mean, take a look. So as he comes full circle, there are pine trees everywhere, thousands of ponderosa pine trees, millions. I guess maybe you can take pine trees for granted. They're just pine trees, but they're tall and thin and green and brown and big. Some of the pine trees are 90 feet tall and more than 300 years old, older than the United States. Some of them were alive when Abraham Lincoln was president. Some of them were alive when George Washington was president. Some of them were alive when Benjamin Franklin was born. I'm talking old. I've probably climbed like 100 different trees in my lifetime. There are 12 in my backyard, another 50 or 60 in the small stand of woods across the field, and another 20 or 30 around our little town, and a few way out in the deep woods, and that tall monster that sits beside the highway to West End past Turtle Lake. That one is way over 100 feet tall. It might be 150 feet tall. You could build a house using just the wood from that tree. When we were like 10 years old, Rowdy and I climbed that sucker. It was probably stupid. Yeah, okay, it was stupid. It's not like we were lumberjacks or anything. It's not like we used anything except our hands, feet, and dumb luck. But we weren't afraid of falling that day. Other days, yeah, I'm terrified of falling. No matter how old I get, I think I'm always going to be scared of falling. But I wasn't scared of gravity on that day. Heck, gravity didn't even exist. Again, the idea of what you know versus what you think you know, and how that affects what you think you can do or what you don't think you can do. It was July, crazy hot and dry. It hadn't rained in like 60 days. Drought hot, scorpion hot. Vultures flying circles in the sky hot. Mostly Rowdy and I just sat in my basement room, which was maybe 5 degrees cooler than the rest of the house, and read books and watched TV and played video games. Mostly Rowdy and I just sat still and dreamed about air conditioning. When I get rich and famous, Rowdy said, I'm going to have a house that has an air conditioner in every room. Sears has those big air conditioners that can cool a whole house, I said. Just one machine, Rowdy asked. Yeah, you put it outside, you connect it through the air vents and stuff. Wow, how much does that cost? Like a few $1,000s, I think. I'll never have that much money. You will when you play in the NBA. Yeah, but I'll probably have to play pro basketball in like Sweden or Norway or Russia or something. And I won't need air conditioning. I'll probably live in like an igloo and own reindeer or something. You're going to play for Seattle, man. And by the way, the Seattle Seahawks were one of the most successful NBA teams of the 1990s, but there's not a team there anymore. So we sort of forget that they exist. Definitely existed during the time that this book is being written and in this reality. Yeah, right. Rowdy didn't believe in himself, not much, so I tried to pump him up. You're the toughest kid on the res, I said. I know, he said. You're the fastest, the strongest, and the most handsome, too. If I had a dog with a face like yours, I'd shave its ass and teach it to walk backwards. I once had a Ziff that looked like you, then I popped it, and then it looked even more like you. This one time, I ate like 3 hot dogs and a bowl of clam chowder, and then I got diarrhea all over the floor, and it looked like you. And then you ate it, Rowdy said. We laughed ourselves silly. We laughed ourselves sweaty. Don't make me laugh, I said. It's too hot to laugh. It's too hot to sit in this house. Let's go swimming. Where? Turtle Lake. Okay, I said. But I was scared of Turtle Lake. It was a small body of water, maybe only a mile around, maybe less, but it was deep, crazy deep. Nobody has ever been to the bottom. I'm not a very good swimmer, so I was always afraid I'd sink and drown, and they'd never ever find my body. One year, these scientists came with a mini submarine and tried to find the bottom, but the lake was so silty and muddy that they couldn't see. And the nearby uranium mine made their radar sonar machines go nuts, so they couldn't see that way either. So they never made it to the bottom. The lake is round, perfectly round. So the scientists said it was probably an ancient and dormant volcano crater. Yeah, a volcano on the res. The lake was so deep because the volcano crater and tunnels and lava chutes and all the plumbing went all the way down to the center of the earth. That lake was like forever deep. There were all sorts of myths and legends surrounding the lake. I mean, we're Indians. We like to make up stuff about lakes, you know. Some people say the lake is named Turtle because it's round and green like a turtle's shell. Some people said it's named Turtle because it used to be filled with regular turtles. Some people said it's named Turtle because it used to be home to this giant snapping turtle that ate Indians. A Jurassic turtle, a Steven Spielberg turtle, a King Kong versus the giant reservation turtle. I didn't exactly believe in the giant turtle myth. I was too old and too smart for that, but I'm still an Indian, and we like to be scared. I don't know what it is about us, but we love ghosts and we love monsters. But I was really scared of this other story about Turtle Lake. My dad told me the story. When he was a kid, he watched a horse drown in Turtle Lake and disappear. Some of the others said it was a giant turtle that grabbed the horse, Dad said, but they're lying. They were just being silly. That horse was just stupid. It was so stupid we named it Stupid Horse. Well, Stupid Horse sank into the endless depths of Turtle Lake, and everybody figured that was the end of the story. But a few weeks later, Stupid Horse's body washed up on the shores of Benjamin Lake, 10 miles away from Turtle Lake. Everybody just figured some joker had found the body and moved it, Dad said, to scare people. People laughed at the practical joke. Then a bunch of guys threw the dead horse into the back of a truck, drove it to the dump, and burned it. Simple story, right? Nope, doesn't end there. Well, a few weeks after they burned the body, a bunch of kids were swimming in Turtle Lake when it caught fire. Yes, the whole lake caught fire. Kids were swimming close to the dock. Because the lake was so deep, most kids swam close to the shore. And the fire started out in the middle of the lake, so the kids were able to safely climb out of the water before it all went up like a big bowl of gasoline. It burned for a few hours, Dad said. Burned hot and fast, and then it went out, just like that. People stayed away for a few days, then went back to look at the damage, And guess what they found? Stupid Horse washed up on shore again. Despite being burned at the dump and burned again in the lake of fire, Stupid Horse was untouched. Well, the horse was still dead, of course, but it was unburned. Nobody went near the horse after that. They just left it, but it took a long time, too long. For weeks, the dead body just lay there. Didn't go bad or anything, didn't stink. The bugs and animals stayed away. Only a few weeks did Stupid Horse finally let go. Let me tell you, Dad said, that was just about the scariest thing I've ever seen. That horse skeleton lying there, it was freaky. After a few more weeks, the skeleton collapsed into a pile of bones, and the water and the wind dragged them away. It was a freaky story. Nobody swam in Turtle Lake for 10 or 11 years, Dad said. Me, I don't think anybody should be swimming in there now, but people forget. They forget good things and they forget bad things. They forget that lakes can catch fire. They forget that dead horses can magically vanish and reappear. I mean, geez, we Indians are just weird. So anyway, on that hot summer day, Rowdy and I walked the 5 miles from my house to Turtle Lake. All the way, I thought about fire and horses, but I wasn't going to tell Rowdy about that. He would have just called me a wuss. He would have just said it was kid stuff. He would have just said it was a hot day that needed a cold lake. As we walked, I saw the Munster pine tree ahead of us. It was so tall and green and beautiful. It was the only reservation skyscraper, I love that tree, I said. That's because you're a tree fag, Rowdy said. I'm not a tree fag, I said. Now come you like to stick your blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you can go ahead and go on with that on your own. Hey, he said, you know what we should do? I hated when Rowdy asked that particular question. It meant we were about to do something dangerous. What should we do? I asked. We should climb that monster. That tree? No, we should climb your big head, he said. Of course I'm talking about that tree, the biggest tree on the res. It wasn't really open to debate. I had to climb that tree. Rowdy knew I had to climb the tree with him. I couldn't back down. That wasn't how our friendship worked. We're going to die, I said. Probably, Rowdy said. So we walked over to the tree and looked up. It was way tall. I got dizzy. You first, Rowdy said. I spit on my hands, rubbed them together, and reached up for the first branch. I pulled myself up to the next branch, and then the next, and the next, and the next. Rowdy followed me. Branch by branch, Rowdy and I climbed toward the top of the tree, to the bottom of the sky. Near the top, the branches got thinner and thinner. I wondered if they'd support our weight. I kept expecting one of them to snap and send me plummeting to my death. But it didn't happen. The branches would not break. Rowdy and I climbed and climbed and climbed. We made it to the top. Well, almost to the top. Even Rowdy was too scared to step on the thinnest branches. So we made it within 10 feet of the top. Not the summit, but close enough to call it the summit. So this is one way in which the two friends literally make it to the top together, which is something that, I think in real life, Junior or Arnold would like to see. And maybe that's why the character is sharing this story with us. We clung tightly to the tree as it swung in the breeze. I was scared, sure, terrified, but it was also fun. We were more than 100 feet in the air. From our vantage point, we could see for miles. We could see from one end of the reservation to the other. We could see our entire world. And our entire world at that moment was green and golden and perfect. Wow, I said. It's pretty, Rowdy said. I've never seen anything so pretty. It was the only time I'd ever heard him talk like that. We stayed in the top of a tree for an hour or two. We didn't want to leave. I thought maybe we'd stay up there and die. I thought maybe 200 years later, scientists would find two boy skeletons stuck in the top of that tree. But Rowdy broke the spell. He farted, a greasy one, a greasy, smelly one that sounded like it was half solid. Geez, I said, I think you just killed the tree. We laughed, and then we climbed down. I don't know if anybody else has ever climbed that tree. I look at it now, years later, and I can't believe we did it. So again, this is something that is difficult to do that they did together. Okay, so at least Arnold has that memory. I can't believe I survived my first year at Reardon. After the last day of school ended, I didn't do much. It was summer. I wasn't supposed to do anything. I mostly sat in my room and read comics. I missed my white friends and white teachers and my translucent semi-girlfriend. Ah, Penelope. I hope she was thinking about me. I'd already written her 3 love letters. I'd hoped she'd write me back. So school ends. He goes back to the reservation. Is at the end of his cycle. And just like Odysseus, towards the end, as he's coming back, he's still got Penelope on the brain. So again, think about that in terms of leaving, trials and tribulations, and then the school year ends and he comes back. Those are the 3 major stages of the hero's journey. Gordy wanted to come to the res and stay with us for a week or two. How crazy is that? And Roger, heading up to Eastern Washington University on a football scholarship, had willed his basketball uniform to me. And so Eastern Washington University is between Pullman, where I used to teach and where Sherman and Alexi went to school before I taught there, and Spokane.
Miss Evans,
hold on for a sec.
1318, Miss Evans, extension 1318.
So if you've ever been watching ESPN where they have the FBS or 1AA football playoff game on, Eastern Washington University is the school that has the red football field. They were pretty good and actually won a national championship a couple of years ago. I've walked around that campus, so it would be nearby to Reardon, probably less than an hour away, probably. So we're still staying within that sort of southeastern corner, that inland corner of Washington State. But Eastern Washington University is a university. It's a real school. You're going to be a star, he said. This was Roger to Arnold. I felt hopeful and silly about the future. And then yesterday, I was sitting in the living room watching some nature show about honeybees when there was a knock on the door. Come in, I shouted, and Rowdy walked inside. I was so happy about this. You can see I wrote yay when I was reading this a long time ago. Okay, it says Rowdy is actually coming to him, wanting to hang out with him. So you remember, he sort of felt like he had lost his friend because of the decisions he's made, and now Rowdy is walking back into his life. Wow, I said. Yeah, he said. We'd always been such scintillating conversationalists. What are you doing here? I asked. I'm bored, he said. The last time I saw you, you tried to punch me, I said. I missed. I thought you were going to break my nose. I wanted to break your nose. You know, I said, it's probably not the best thing in the world to do, punching a hydro in the skull. Ah, shoot, he said. I couldn't give you any more brain damage than you already got. And besides, didn't I give you 1 concussion already? Yep, and 3 stitches in my forehead. Hey, man, I had nothing to do with those stitches. I only do concussions. I laughed. He laughed. I thought you hated me, I said. I do, he said, but I'm bored. He doesn't hate him. He loves him. So what? So you want to maybe shoot some hoops? For a second, I thought about saying no. I thought about telling him to bite my butt. I thought about making him apologize, but I couldn't. He was never going to change. Let's go, I said. We walked over to the courts behind the high school, 2 old hoops with chain nets. We just shot lazy jumpers for a few minutes. We didn't talk. We didn't need to talk. We were basketball twins. Of course, Rowdy got hot, hitting 15 or 20 in a row, and I rebounded and kept passing the ball to him. Then I got hot, hit 21 in a row, and Rowdy rebounded for me. You want to go one-on-one, Rowdy asked. Yeah. You've never beaten me one-on-one, he said. Yeah, that's going to change. Not today, he said. Maybe not today, I said, but someday. Your ball, he said, and passed it to me. I spun the rock in my hands. Where are you going to school next year, I asked. What do you think, dumbass? Right here, where I've always been. You could come to Reardon with me. So he's still trying. You already asked me that once. Yeah, but I asked you a long time ago, before everything happened, before we knew stuff. So the idea that Arnold has grown, they've grown, they know things now. All right. They see things differently. So I'm asking you again, come to Ridden with me. Rowdy breathed deeply. For a second, I thought he was going to cry. Really, I expected him to cry, but he didn't. You know, I was reading this book, he said. Wow, you were reading a book, I said, mock surprise. Eat me, he said. We laughed. So anyway, he said, I was reading this book about old-time Indians and about how we used to be nomadic. Yeah, I said. So I looked up nomadic in the dictionary, and it means people who move around, who keep moving in search of food and water and grazing land. That sounds about right. Well, the thing is, I don't think Indians are nomadic anymore. Most Indians, anyway. No, we're not, I said. I'm not nomadic, Rowdy said. Hardly anybody on this res is nomadic except for you. You're the nomadic one. Whatever. No, I'm serious. I always knew you were going to leave. I always knew you were going to leave us behind and travel the world. I had this dream about you a few months ago. You were standing on the Great Wall of China. You looked happy, and I was happy for you. Rowdy didn't cry, but I did. You're an old-time nomad, Rowdy said. You're going to keep moving all over the world in search of food and water and grazing land. That's pretty cool. So we've seen Arnold grow, but now we see Rowdy grow too. And you can tell that Rowdy has been having this internal conflict about how to resolve his thoughts about Junior in terms of being red or white, or being Indian, or being someone who betrayed him as a best friend, but also the reservation. But we also see that Rowdy has also always known that Arnold had more things than just being on the reservation in his future, or should have anyway. And what's interesting is he resolves this by bringing Arnold back into that schema of what it means to be an Indian. He says, you know, we were nomadic. A lot of us were nomadic at one time, but we're not anymore. But you're still a nomad. You're like an old school Indian. You're actually more Indian than the rest of us. And so that's how he resolves the tensions that he has in thinking about Arnold. He says, you know what? Actually, leaving, moving around, seeing the world, that is one of the most Indian things you can do. We've forgotten it, but you are actually continuing the traditions of the tribe, or some tribes, as opposed to fighting them. And so that makes it okay. A lot of, deep thinking there from Rowdy. And not only that, but he says it's cool and he's proud of him for that. And we know that Arnold appreciates that. I could barely talk. Thank you, I said. Yeah, Rowdy said. Just make sure you send me postcards, you asshole. From everywhere, I said. I would always love Rowdy, and I would always miss him too, just as I would always love and miss my grandmother, my big sister, and Eugene, just as I would always love and miss my reservation and my tribe. I hoped and prayed that they would someday forgive me for leaving them. I hoped and prayed that I would someday forgive myself for leaving them. Oh man, Rowdy said, stop crying. Will we still know each other when we're old men? I asked. Who knows anything? Rowdy asked. Then he threw me the ball. Now quit your blubbering, he said, and play ball. I wiped my tears away, dribbled once, twice, and pulled up for a jumper. Rowdy and I played one-on-one for hours. We played until dark. We played until the street lights lit up the court. We played until the bats swooped down at our heads. We played until the moon was huge and golden and perfect in the dark sky. We didn't keep score. So there they are. They're not warriors. There's no rules. They're just friends, just brothers. It's pretty awesome. So hopefully you can tell that I like this book, and I've really enjoyed being able to share it with you through reading some chapters to you, and also through the sort of stream of consciousness from the second video. I love how we see themes of othering, of identity, of thinking we know something versus what we might actually know or come to know in this book. Again, the absolute true diary in American literature should suggest to you that it's not absolute and it's not true. And diary suggests that it's the point of view of one person. And so we finally do see multiple point of views from Rowdy, and certainly from Arnold. And that's how we can tell that there has been growth. And we can think about it in terms of othering or the hero's journey, which I do want you to keep thinking about, since that is something that has tied a lot of our literature together this semester. Um, and we can certainly think about it in terms of social justice and um, socioeconomic lenses, thinking about this from sort of the poverty lens or the minority lens. So many ways we can think about this. And there are just some truly beautiful lines in here, and I appreciated the opportunity to be able to share some of that with you. You know how to get in touch with me if you need me. I hope that you've enjoyed this. And again, if you found it helpful, please let your other classmates know that these videos exist. And hopefully I'll see you soon. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.